How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Winning Ways podcast. I'm Sam, and this is Kurt. How you doing, Kurt?
I'm good. How are you, Sam?
Good. I hope you're feeling better. I know you worked too early today.
It's been a rough couple days. Got a little cold, not the Rona, but I'm definitely feeling better.
That's all that I like to hear. I'm glad you're doing better. What are your thoughts on the fights this weekend, man? It's a sick card.
Yeah, really good card, honestly, from top to bottom. I mean, they definitely stacked it, and I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed it from the first fight all the way to the last.
Yeah, me too. I mean, starting from the top of the main card, the first fight of the night. I don't know if you remember what we talked about at the last episode. Paul Craig won his 12 of his 14 fights by submission, and I said it was going to come down to if he could get to the ground or not. And right away, he pulled guard and probably had one of the most underrated submissions. Like the setup for that, like from a straight armbar to an armbar to the other side, is probably one of the most underrated submissions that you'll see.
Yeah, he kind of a little bit boneheaded from Jamal Hill. I think Jamal Hill had a very distinct advantage on the feet. Paul Craig pulled guard, and right away, as soon as Paul Craig pulled guard, he started threatening him with like that little mirror lock, from close guard, which ultimately led to like the finishing set. I mean, honestly, not even the finishing setup. That was like a minute of just horror. But yeah, I mean, he had a couple of really nice setups. I thought Jamal Hill should have tried to disengage and get back to his feet, but it ultimately paid the price for him.
Yeah, I think because leading up to that fight, they had a little bit of bad blood. I don't know if you saw a lot of the UFC betting, but they had a little bit of problems. I feel like Jamal Hill was trying to prove that he was more than just a striker, and he wanted to try to punish Paul Craig, and ultimately failed. I hope he recovers quickly because his elbow was flopping around. It is gross.
Yeah, they said it was dislocated and not broken, so I think it's a good thing. But yeah, very poor refereeing. The referee should have identified that situation many seconds earlier before the finish. He took some unneeded punishment. I'm glad that it was just a dislocation, not a break. He should make a full recovery pretty quickly.
Yeah, I'm glad even Paul Craig in the post-fight interview said it himself. He goes, after he felt it pop out of place, he said there was no point in trying to continue doing anything to it because it was out. Like there was no more damage that was going to happen to it. So
yeah, I know. Yeah, that was disgusting. I feel like the ref could have stopped that sooner. I don't know. Again, that's what happens when you go to these how do I want to put this? Like these unfamiliar territories, right? They've done cards in Arizona before, but it's not like they go there often, like Vegas or California.
Yeah, they had some local referees.
You get these local referees that, and are put in the situations like this. He didn't ref another fight after that. So yeah, you see it every once in a while, but I don't know. You can't beat him up too much. The referee has arguably the toughest job in the business, but yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as a fighter, if the ref stops it, you can use that excuse like, oh, no, I could have fought out of it. But then if the ref doesn't stop it, now your arm is facing the wrong way. I mean, it looked like the Nike swoosh, man. His arm was.
Yeah, it was not a good look.
Yeah, it's definitely bad for sure. But after that, once again, that whole card really, it was surprisingly a really good night of fights, in my opinion. Followed up by Bilal Muhammad and Damian Maia. Personally, I'm not sure if you saw the full stat line, but Muhammad outstruck him 3-1 and defended 20 of 21 takedowns.
I did see it. Damian Maia is one of the best submission artists, if not the best submission artist, honestly, in MMA history. But in 2021, with the evolution of the game, it's tough to be a one-trick pony. Damian Maia just could not get the takedown, and he resorted to it over and over. It's hard to look good against Damian Maia, because you have to be so weary with letting your hands and your feet go of him getting the takedown, because sometimes all he needs is one. But Bilal did what he had to do. He stayed off the mat, and Damian Maia never really changed up the game plan. But again, at 43 years old, he's been in a million fights. It's a good win for Bilal Muhammad at the end.
I agree. And, and Damian Maia on his side, to be ranked number 9 at 43 years old in a loaded welterweight weight class is, to me, good for him. Kudos to him. He's had a great career. I'm pretty sure that was the last fight on his contract. I'm not sure what's going to happen next for him. But like you said, good win for Bilal Muhammad. He'll definitely move up the rankings a few spots. Kind of now gives him a chance to pick and choose a good fight for himself. I personally think a good matchup for him would be like a Neil Magny or a Michael Chiesa. I think that could be a good next fight for him, and then set him up for maybe a title contending shot or something along those lines.
I think Neil Magny is always a good fight. Chiesa actually just got matched up with Vicente Luque today, which is an excellent fight. But yeah, the Neil Magny one is good. Neil Magny, that dude is always looking to fight. He'll fight anyone. I do really like that call.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Then, also people don't understand, like we said that Damian Maia shot 21 times. To shoot 21 times in a 3-round fight is absolutely insane. And to not give up on it is even more insane. Bilal defended 20 of 21s, and the one time that he was taken down, he popped right back up to his feet. Yeah. I'm surprised that Damian Maia did not get demotivated. But then again, you live by the sword, die by the sword. Like you said, in 2021, it's hard to be like, you just stick to the one thing. You have to evolve. And unfortunately, he wasn't able to get to where he's good at.
Yeah. But again, tough career. I mean, tough end, but an excellent career for Damian Maia. I don't know what he's going to do next. Dana White sounded like he did not want to give him another fight. I know Damian Maia said he wants one more. He said he'd like to fight Nate Diaz. Don't think he's going to get that fight, but if Damian Maia wants one more, I'd like to see the UFC give it to him. Give him a winnable fight, or not even a winnable fight, but you don't have to give him anyone in the top 5 or top 10. You can give him pretty much anyone. There's a lot of big names to give him. So I don't know. Maybe he rides off into the sunset. Maybe he signs with the Bellator or something. But look, if he's serious and he just wants one more fight, I would like to see the UFC honor that, because the guy is a legend.
Yeah, he's been in the league. He's been in the UFC alone for who knows how many years now. I think they said, man, I'm trying to think.
7.
Yeah, I remember him fighting for the belt way back in the day.
His UFC debut. Hold on, I'll pull it up right now. His UFC debut was at UFC 77, October 20th, 2007. So
14 years.
He was 7-0 at the time. He is now 28-11. Fought for the title in 2 different weight classes. Yeah, absolute legend.
Yeah, so you can't take anything away from him. What were your thoughts on that Nate Diaz and Leon Edwards fight?
I mean, dude, there's a multitude of different ways to go with this one. Off the top, I gotta say, it's crazy to say Leon Edwards won a clear-cut 49-46 decision, unanimous decision, dominated in most facets of the fight. But man, that guy cannot catch a break. He was one of I think the biggest losers of the COVID pandemic. He's off for what, 2+ years, comes back, fights Bilal Muhammad. That ends in an eye poke. And now he fights Nate Diaz, the biggest fight of his career, with a possible title shot on the line. He dominates for what, 23.5 to 24 minutes.
Yeah, man.
And Nate Diaz rocks him. And we're talking like Nate Diaz won the fight. You hate to see it for Leon Edwards, but I mean, that's the story of Nate's career at this point. Nate has 13 losses in his career, but goddamn, that guy always produces. He always delivers. He is an absolute superstar. And man, you think he won the fight.
Yeah,
so
you're right. You're
again, there's a lot of different ways you can go with this one, but honestly, I was impressed with Leon. But man, Nate almost won that fight. It was goddamn exciting.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. To be honest with you, Leon Edwards was super precise, and I think he looked great striking. We saw a good grappling from him. I mean, he looked great up until he didn't. I mean, he looked almost invincible. The way he fought that fight, I was like, man, he could give anyone a problem at this weight class. But I knew after, I don't remember what round it was, but after he flipped off Nate Diaz, when Nate Diaz smacked his hand away to touch it, I knew he now
3.
And he then left the game plan of being technical and he turned it into a street fight. And because of that, he got hit with a Stockton slap left hand to the face and almost went out. I mean, if there was another minute on that card, on the whole fight, that's it. Nate Diaz wins that fight, and Leon Edwards is literally the unluckiest man in the UFC.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I was a little frustrated when Nate rocks him. He clearly had him hurt, and he decides to clown. And you kind of saw it throughout the fight. And again, Nate's 36 years old. And listen, 170 is not the optimal weight class for Nate Diaz, especially fighting the top of the division. I mean, if you look at Nate's career, what is Nate good at? He's a good pressure fighter. He fights in volume. He punches and bunches. He doesn't have the biggest power, but eventually the volume gets to you. And I just don't think at 170 against the elite of the division, he can pressure like that anymore. And you saw this in stretches of the fight. Leon stayed disciplined. and Nate just couldn't pressure him. And, he resorted to clowning
You're
and,
right.
and again, a guy like Leon Edwards, who doesn't make many mistakes, isn't going to fall for that. He's not going to play into that game. He stayed disciplined. But like you said, it only took that one strike and for him to get off his game a little bit in that 5th round, and Nate rocked him. I mean, it was an awesome fight. It made for drama. I mean, Nate Diaz, you still see, I mean, he is one of the biggest draws in the UFC. That crowd was so pro Nate Diaz. There's 2 title fights on the card. Israel Adesanya is on the card, but who is the biggest fighter on that card? Who are the fans there to see? It's still Nate freaking Diaz, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm going to say one thing really quickly. I think this was the first time I've ever seen somebody who knew he lost the fight. They raised Leon Edwards' hands, and Nate Diaz raised both of his hands, and the crowd erupted. The crowd went nuts when he did that.
But what's funny? It's like in the most Diaz way. What did he say in the press conference? He said, listen, if that was a street fight, he's like, Leon Edwards is sleepwalking out there. He's like, I would have finished him. And honestly, most people are going to say, yeah, honestly, you're right. So again, it's a Nate Diaz win. He's just, dude, he's just so, he is a real motherfucker, that guy.
Yeah.
He is real with what he says and how he carries himself.
Yeah, he comes to fight every single time. It doesn't matter. And you know what? I'll give him a lot of props because, like you said, he went up to welterweight, but he didn't just fight at welterweight. He fought a true welterweight. He fought somebody who's technically been in training camp for about 2 years. Like you said, unlucky all throughout COVID, comes back from COVID after a full camp to fight Bilal Muhammad, ends in an eye poke, still in camp pretty much, gets the Nate Diaz fight, goes and performs, does his thing. And this is a real welterweight, somebody who's cutting down to make 170 pounds.
Well, here's the thing. I think we have to, and we could talk about what's next for Nate, but we do have to shift a lot of the praise to Leon Edwards. He is the guy that won the fight. And I want to say it's a hot take, but dude, I've been seeing it all over the place. I honestly would not mind them giving Leon Edwards the next shot at Kamaru Usman over Colby Covington. I mean, you're going to be hard pressed to tell me as close as that first Colby Covington fight was with Kamaru, you're going to be hard pressed to tell me that Colby Covington, who has only fought once since that fight against Tyron Woodley, who's now about to box Jake Paul, who's on a 4-fight losing streak in MMA. Say what you will about Tyron Woodley, that Leon Edwards, who's on a 9-fight winning streak, deserves a title shot more than Leon Edwards. I know he's probably not going to get it next, but dude, I think Leon Edwards deserves a title shot right now.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think if, let's just say, for example, the Nate Diaz fight didn't happen, or if it happened earlier, like maybe not exactly when it happened, he would be next. I feel like since Dana already offered it or came out and said it's going to be Colby Covington next, that's the only reason why now Leon has to wait. Once again, though, what do you do if you're Leon? Do you wait and fight the winner, or are you trying to stay active? Because look, in my eyes, he's already beat 1/2 of the BMF. Do you now try to take a shot at George Masvidal, get another quick payday, also get yourself some good experience, maybe another 5-round fight? You never see it. You don't know how that goes. And if he stays technical and stays true to his game, I could see him beating George Masvidal, getting 2 huge wins, and now going to fight Kamaru, if he's not able to get the Kamaru fight right away, like you're saying.
That is the only fight he can take.
Yeah.
It's Masvidal. That is it. Nobody else. And that is only because they have the built-in storyline. And again,
3 pieces.
What's Leon? Yeah, I mean, again, that's one of the things that Leon
Unlucky.
Edwards is known for. I think either way, again, if he wants to be active, the only fight he can take is George Masvidal. He can't fight anybody else, right? He's on a 9-fight winning streak. We've seen guys. We saw Tony Ferguson. He gambled. He fought Justin Gaethje. He lost. He was on a 12-fight winning streak. We've seen it before. Guys take the gamble. Joanne Calderwood, who was on this undercard, was scheduled to fight Valentina Shevchenko, took the gamble of taking another fight against
Murphy. Yes.
No, not on this card. She fought somebody a couple of years ago, Jennifer Maia, and lost. She lost her title shot, right? Masvidal is still a big name. He's still going to be a big payday, but
you gotta be careful.
I gotta think Leon Edwards is going to sit. I think he's earned the title shot. I think both guys make sense for him. Maybe he fights Masvidal, but I think he's going to sit, and I think he deserves that next shot. Or maybe he stays ready whenever they announce that fight, and if either guy goes down, he's ready. He's going to step in and take that fight either for an interim or the real title.
Yeah, and and here's the thing: it's not so bad if he sits, because lately, and I'm not sure for what reason why, but I feel like most champions are fighting at a more frequently rate now than they used to. And I feel like it's setting the tone. You have Izzy, who's already fought like 4 or 5 defenses with his middleweight title, then goes and fights Jan. And then now you have Kamaru, who's defended his belt multiple times. And I believe he's already fought 2 times. So in the past year span, I'm saying from his last 2 fights has been within a year. So if you're Leon, it's like, okay, you take the time to recover. The Masvidal-Usman fight hopefully happens sometime over the summer. And then you sit out, wait maybe 4 or 5 months, and bam, you're next in line for the title shot.
Right.
That's definitely a good way to play it out. Then you go right into the co-main event. I mean, once again, we were able to talk about this Nathan's fight for so long, but congratulations to the new flyweight champ, Brandon Moreno. I believe put on one of the most dominant performances in his entire career, and ultimately was able to put out Davidson Figueiredo with a rear naked choke round 3.
Probably going to be the best feel-good moment of MMA in 2021. Brandon Moreno just seems like such a good guy. He's kind of a nerd, right? He's like a Lego guy. He collects those
Funko Pops.
The little pop figures. He's always like friendly. He's always smiling. And going into this fight, you kind of thought like, besides the low blow in the first fight, like we might not even see this fight right now. Like Davison Figueiredo maybe wins that fight by unanimous decision, which he would have, and he's fighting someone else. But I mean, Brandon Moreno dominated every single facet of this fight. And it was surprising and it was beautiful. And the moment was beautiful. You saw the reaction back in Tijuana. And this is such a good thing for the UFC because I feel like they've been trying to follow the boxing model, right? Like boxing is so prevalent and so big in Mexico. Look at a guy like Canelo, right? And they just haven't been able to hit a home run with that yet, right? They tried Cain Velasquez, Tito Ortiz, both Mexican Americans, but now you have a true Mexican-born bilingual UFC champion with that good of a personality and that badass of a fighter. What a moment. Awesome stuff, man.
Yeah, and you're right about that. You think about it, Canelo Alvarez, and how about when Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua back in boxing?
Yeah, right.
You have an entire country who backs their combat sports fighters. Like Mexico gets behind them 110% of the way. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but after Brandon Moreno won, one of the guys that trains out of his gym got a tattoo of that picture with him holding it up on the back of his calf. I mean, if you want to talk about a huge moment for that country in the UFC, I mean, that should say it itself.
Did you see that mural that one artist drew in Mexico as well?
Holy crap, man. Incredible. It's awesome moment. Like you said, I think this is a fan favorite. He's a guy that, like you said, he's a nerd. He's your typical, like, oh, this guy's not going to fight, and then ends up whooping ass. So I think
great story too,
dude. I know he's
cut from the UFC. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
came back and
last pick on the Ultimate Fighter. Like this guy he's fought through adversity, and I mean the way he fought on Saturday night.
He was the best in the world. That was it.
Best in the world. Yeah, knocks him down with a jab in the first.
Yeah,
it takes his back. I mean, it was beautiful.
He dominated him. Even Dana White came out and said, he goes, going into this fight, I did not see an out where Brandon Moreno won this fight. But he won from start to finish, and it was an incredible fight to see. And after, I don't know if you heard, but he made the comment about how when Rose, being the underdog in her last 2 fights and telling herself, you can hear her saying, I am the best. I'm the best. He told him, I have to believe this. I have to believe it to be true. And he went out there and he was the best. I mean, there was no way he was losing that fight. So it was awesome to see. Personally, I think what's going to happen next is I think the way he finished Figueiredo, he's not going to get an immediate rematch. I think Askar Askarov, the undefeated Russian guy, is now going to fight Brandon Moreno for the belt.
So you would have thought that that should have made the most sense, but Askarov just got signed to fight Alex Perez.
What?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So I don't know what they're going to do with Brandon Moreno. I don't think they should go with a Figueiredo fight next, but Askarov just signed to fight Alex Perez. The other fight that would make sense would be
Pantoja, right? Like
Alexander Pantoja, if he beats Brandon Royval.
Which is also a crazy hard fight.
That is an extremely hard fight. Royval also fought Moreno and lost, but it was because of shoulder dislocation.
Mm-hmm. Which is a banger going into that.
A lot of different ways you can go with it. I mean, Pantoja has beat Brandon Moreno twice. He beat him in the UFC and he beat him on the Ultimate Fighter. Askarov and Moreno fought to a draw. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go. I thought it was going to be Askarov, but now I have no idea, but I think there's a lot of interesting ways you can go with Brandon Moreno. The shame right now is Mexico's situation with COVID. I don't know how soon they're going to be able to host a fight in Mexico, but it feels like, could you imagine Brandon Moreno's first title defense in Mexico?
It would be sold out.
Right.
Done.
That should be the dream right now. But with COVID, I have no idea. But I think he's in a great spot. I think you can go a lot of different ways with him. And man, it's exciting for a division that was almost cut a couple years ago.
Yeah, it honestly is now probably one of the most exciting divisions.
Right.
There's talent all the way through. For a while, it's like you said, that division was almost cut, and then you have Henry Cejudo coming in, and he made that division go in the right direction. I believe him coming in after when he beat Demetrius Johnson, and then I think that set the tone. And then the fighters from that point forward have now been competing. They've been putting on crazy shows for the UFC, and I think it's great for that division.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then even still for Figueiredo, once again, since you're talking about how the way all this stuff is signed, what's next for him? If you're Figueiredo, do you try to get that immediate rematch, or do you try to take like a step back, gather yourself, maybe fight like an Alexander Pantoja who he's beaten in the past, or maybe the loser of Askarov and Perez, and then win that fight and go back for the title?
I'll tell you the fight I'd like to see, especially because here's the thing, he's got to choose right now if he wants to fight at 125, right?
Yeah.
He didn't, he never looks very good at the weigh-ins. He came to this fight, with 30 seconds to spare, barely stepping on the scale. And again, like, he didn't look like the normal Deiveson Figueiredo. If he wants to stay at 125, how about Cody Garbrandt? They were supposed to fight, I believe in November, for the belt, and it didn't really make a lot of sense then. But Garbrandt coming off a loss, possibly needing a fresh start. How about that fight? I like that right now. At 125, I think at this point it makes sense. And for either guy, with a win, you're right back into title connect.
I agree. And once again, it's not necessarily a step back for either fighters. You have a fighter who wants to go down to 125 and doesn't want to start completely over. It's a fresh start, not a start over. He's going to drop down to 125. He'll fight a number one contender fight right away against the guy who just lost the title. And like you said, that's if Figueiredo wants to stay at 125. And if that's the case, that is the fight to make. That would be an all-out war. Because, if we see a Cody Garbrandt that is the old Cody Garbrandt, that fight would be insane.
Yeah, I like the fight. I don't think Deiveson Figueiredo falls too far. If he stays at 125 from the belt, he's still an exciting fighter with an amazing record. Again, there's tons of fights like you said, Pantoja, Askarov. There's so many guys at 125 right now. But maybe he goes up to 35. Who knows? I don't know how well he'd do up at 35, because 35 right now is an absolute shark tank. But I think he's still an exciting guy in either division.
I agree. Yeah, 135 is a tough weight class to go up to, especially. He would need time to really get bigger, because to just go up and be like, yeah, I'm going to go to 135 and fight now, that's a tough move to make. Where do you put him? You know what I mean? Who do you want? Who does he want to fight? Like, if you think about it, if he were to fight a Rob Font, he would have no chance of getting in close with him. That guy's reach is insane. He's got one of the nicest jabs in probably the entire UFC, and you can't just give him an immediate title shot. He's coming off a loss.
Exactly. Yeah, he'd have to fight the back half of the 135, and again, those guys are all killers.
Yeah, what are you gonna give him? Sandhagen? Like, who are you gonna give him?
I don't know. I think he's gonna stay at 25.
Yeah,
I think he's at 25, and I think there is a lot of interesting matchups for him.
Yeah, I agree. And then now let's talk about the main event. What are your thoughts on that?
I thought Israel Adesanya was extremely impressive. Look, Marvin Vettori is a very durable fighter. I even said on my podcast coming into this fight, we talked about it on this podcast. He's a durable fighter. Izzy did what he had to do. Vettori fought a one-note fight, but Izzy picked him apart on the feet. He tore up his legs. He passed the test on the ground. Vettori had his back at one point and he reversed him. He didn't get the finish, but against a durable guy like Marvin Vettori, to shut him out, it was never close. Izzy was never in too much danger. I was super impressed with him. He was just too small for 205. Jan's a big dude. Those guys are huge, but at 185, I just think he reasserted his dominance, and he reasserted the fact of why we are all so obsessive about him and so just in awe of his talent because he really showed it again on Saturday night.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I'll be honest with you. The idea Marvin Vettori had, you know, the game plan he had was there, but we also got to see in Israel Adesanya, this was the first time I really got to see him grapple and where it excelled. Because like you said, he went up to 205. You're not going to see too much grappling. Jan is a big 205 pounder. It's going to be hard to get that off of you. But now at his natural weight class at 185, and I'm not sure if people know this, but he weighed in 1.5 pounds under the championship weight. Like I don't know how much he cuts. So for him to be at his natural weight class and have fun out there, like he said he didn't perform, I mean, he grappled. He looked great on the ground. After he reversed Marvin Vettori, I don't know if you heard him after say that. He said he told him when he was on top of him, he goes, "You're scared now, aren't you?" And he said, "I saw the soul come right out of Vettori because that was Vittori's chance. I mean, he had his back. He was there, but he couldn't do anything, couldn't capitalize. And then, like you said, he landed his leg kicks. He landed over 40 leg kicks. And I cannot believe that Vettori kept moving forward after that. That is rare to see.
Didn't even limp. Yeah,
Nothing.
I mean, again, Vittori's a tough dude, but yeah, that was Vittori's best shot, right? He had his back. You know, he had an opportunity at his neck, and Izzy reversed it. You know, Izzy is never going to be, a guy that's going to strictly use his jiu-jitsu, but I thought his takedown defense looked great. His get-up game looked great. I think, again, at 205, he was a bit small. And yeah, here's the thing. Jan and Vettori are not the same fighter. You know, Vettori's a presser fighter. Jan fights in bursts, but he is very good at slowing the fight down and making the fight at his pace. You know, he even had Izzy coming at him, but he picked when Izzy had to come at him, and then he blended his takedowns. Marvin is not that fighter, so that comparison going into the fight was not that accurate.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing there was the game plan. You know, like, yeah, try to take him down, but it's like you said, you know, people have to understand, you know, there's his legendary Polish power for Jan. You know what I mean? Yes. There's a reason why people say that. You can't just rush him. You can't just strike the way Izzy was striking with Marvin, because when Izzy was against the cage, you know what I mean, moving his head, messing around and something like that. Like if Jan clips him there, it's a whole different outcome than when Marvin lands a punch there. So it just changes the dynamic, which is probably why Jan is able to slow the fight down and someone like Marvin can't. And I think, like you said, his takedown defense against Marvin looked incredible. I think the reason why Marvin strayed away from it was because every time he would try to take him down against the cage, he just kept eating elbows and punches to the face. And I was like frustrating for him. I don't know if you saw his coach was getting pissed at him. He goes, "I don't care." He goes, "You're down 2 fucking rounds." He goes, "Get his ass to the ground and beat him up." And he couldn't do it. He just couldn't do it.
Marvin actually thought he won the fight, which is ridiculous. But hey, man, self-belief, baby.
Yeah,
more power to him.
That's right.
You know what I love about Izzy though? Izzy, he's a real dude. You know, he went up and fought for the 205 belt, but I think he was at a point where he could. But after this fight, he called out the right guy, and he always calls out the right guy, and I respect that for him. He said Robert Whittaker is next. And dude, that is obviously the fight to make. Robert Whittaker deserved this fight before Marvin Vettori. Obviously, the timeline didn't work, but I always loved it about Izzy. He calls out the right guy. He wants to defend his belt against the right guy. And that fight, especially, and I don't see why not. If you can do that in New Zealand where he called for it, that's such a big fight for the Oceanic region. It's a big rematch. Whittaker coming off 3 just grueling wins against the best of the 185-pound division. I think that rematch is absolutely huge. Izzy dominated the first fight, but I don't think the second fight is going to be remotely close to that. I think it's going to be a war, and man, I cannot wait for it. That's one of my most anticipated fights at the moment.
I agree with you 1,000%, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. The way that Robert Whittaker's striking has looked recently, you're going to see a completely different fight the next time they go at it. Listen, not taking anything away from Adesanya. Everybody knows his striking is superb, but just the way that Robert Whittaker's been handling the people lately, and his striking and the precision, the getting in, the getting out, the head movement, I don't think he's going to risk getting clipped like that again against Adesanya. Now, once again, it's not a set in stone thing, but there is a game plan to beat somebody like Israel Adesanya. You know, it's possible. It's happened. It's not. It's there. And you're right.
It happened at 205 though. It's never.
Yeah.
It's never even come close to happen at 185. I mean, Vettori took him down in the first fight, but that wasn't the same blueprint that Jan did.
Exactly.
You know what I'm
Completely
saying?
different. Completely different.
Vittori took him down in the first fight, but he couldn't really do anything with it. The
Mhm.
Jan thing, I don't think is relevant at 205 because
It
Izzy
can't
is
be.
just, these
He's not
guys can't
205
take him
power.
down
Yeah. Yeah.
at 185. They struggle with it. He's got great takedown defense, especially against the cage. If you
Yeah.
get him in open space, it's a little bit easier to deal with him getting him down. But when you try to get him down against the cage, his takedown defense is excellent.
Yeah, and people don't realize he's like 6'4". When somebody's
Yeah.
against the cage and they're that tall, do you know how hard it is to pick their legs up in the air and put them down?
Yeah,
Like
the
their
base
legs,
is so wide.
yeah, I was gonna say their legs are gonna be all the way out there. It's not that easy to just take them down like it is in space. But I think that is the fight to make. And dude, if they can get that fight in Auckland in New Zealand, like you're saying, man, throw Volkanovski on that card. Imagine that. Imagine the rematch. Let's say Max Holloway comes off another win. Imagine the timeline setting up where you have Adesanya and then versus Whitaker and then a Volkanovski and Holloway type of match underneath it.
Well, I mean, maybe it's going to line up where you bring it to New Zealand and you do the Ortega Volkanovski fight. Remember that fight still needs to happen, and it's going to be later this year. So I mean, yeah, I think if you could pair those for the main and co-main, you're going to do big business.
They would sell that place out instantly. Those are two fan favorites over there for sure. Throw Robert Whitaker on, you know that his guys are going to come on over it. I mean, it's going to be incredible. It'll just be an awesome card, an awesome time. And man, if that happens, I think that'll be, like you said, huge for that region in the sport. Yeah. That would be ginormous. But let's not take away from Marvin. Marvin, once again, you know, after the fight ended, he said his head is still high. You know, his morale is still there. Like he still thinks he's the best, and he's already taken shots at Paulo Costa.
Yeah, I mean, Marvin's only 27 years old. I thought he performed well. He was tough. He never gave up. He kept pushing till the end, and that's hard to really move forward and push for 25 straight minutes, especially when you're just getting leg kicked upon leg kick,
40-something
leg kicks.
times.
You know, his leg was getting chewed up, and he didn't so much as limp. The Paulo Costa fight makes the most sense. I know he's taken a couple shots at him. I believe Costa has responded. Costa is going through that little whatever you want to call it, contract dust up with the UFC. But man, if you can get that as a 5-round fight night main event, those guys are both hotheads.
Yeah.
Dude, that's the fight to make.
Yeah.
And again, the winner there is going to put themselves right back up into that title contention picture. Yeah,
I agree. And it's funny you say that because they both are hotheads. To the point that even if the strategy is to take somebody down, they would rather stand in the middle and strike. They would rather duke it out and fight each other like with their hands instead of try to take each other down and grapple just because they're both angry dudes.
I think the other option could be the winner or possibly even the loser of the Uriah Hall-Sean Strickland fight. Because I think the winner of that fight is in a very, very good position to possibly even challenge for the title in the not too soon future. So I think either the winner or the loser of that fight could produce a good challenger for Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, and honestly, once again, not the same caliber, but the Uriah Hall versus Chris Weidman fight, that game plan would probably be very similar to what a Vettori would try to do to somebody like Uriah Hall. Yeah. I think that he would have to keep more of a boxing approach instead of kickboxing. He's going to have to stay in his face, hopefully get the fight to the ground and go from there. I don't think it would be a smart idea to try to strike a farce like kickboxing range with somebody like Uriah Hall.
Right.
So there's that. I mean, listen, I thought it was a wonderful card. I think it sets up so many opportunities for the future in all those weight classes, like you said. I mean, I could still talk about from flyweight, welterweight, and middleweight for options right now, but I think we hit most of it pretty good, and I'm hoping those are the fights that get made.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There is a lot on this card, top to bottom. A lot of good stuff happened, and that main card just produced so many different storylines.
Yep. Then this weekend coming up, you have a UFC Fight Night, which is also, listen, for a fight night, this is an awesome card. You have Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, versus Dan Ige. That's the main event on this card. So I'm excited for this weekend. I know that a fight that I'm excited for, that's, I believe, the first fight on the main card of this is Matt Brown versus Diego Lima. That's a rematch. And the only reason I'm really excited for it is because Diego Lima got his first loss to Matt Brown, both at two completely different points in their career now. Matt Brown is probably on the back half of his career. And I don't know, Diego Lima is at that point where he could still be entering his prime or maybe in his prime now. So I'm thinking there's going to be a different outcome personally.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fun fight. Both, I mean, Matt Brown, again, at the tail end of his career, in the twilight of his career, he had a retirement. He's flirted with retirement. he is what, 40?
40. He's 40.
He's 40, right?
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Matt Brown is just a legend. He's just synonymous with just blood and guts, just amazing fights. Diego Lima, the other, the brother of Bellator great Douglas Lima, is a good striker, right? So this fight is it's fun, and it's going to make for a fun fight. I think it's a great opener to the card, and I think, especially if Matt Brown wins, I think Matt Brown, there's a lot of different things you could do with him.
Yeah.
Even at his age, if he wants to keep fighting.
Yeah, and at a weight class like that, you could. I'm not saying it's going to happen because it's two different things, but like a Matt Brown, Donald Cerrone thing.
You know what? I'm going to give you a name for Matt Brown. You ready for this?
Tell me.
If Matt Brown's wins this weekend, how about Nick freaking Diaz? Everybody, we're all talking about the Nick Diaz comeback, and Dana White's even said Nick Diaz is looking like he's going to fight this year, right? Nick Diaz's optimal weight is going to be 170, but if Nick Diaz comes back, I don't want to see Nick Diaz. Obviously Nick Diaz, his name is huge. He's going to draw a big crowd, but I don't want to see Nick Diaz in there with some contender. Like if they came out tomorrow and they're like, all right, Nick Diaz is going to fight Vicente Luque. Like, no, I don't want to see that. I want to see Nick Diaz in a fun fight with another old guy and an aging veteran. If Matt Brown wins, Matt Brown's synonymous with violence. How about Matt Brown versus Nick freaking Diaz?
I agree. And let me tell you why that fight makes a lot of sense is almost the same way how Conor came back and they gave him Donald Cerrone. I believe not taking anything away from Donald Cerrone, once again, on the back half of his career, coming off of multiple losses, you get a big draw like that. People love Conor McGregor. You give him somebody that, not saying he's going to guarantee himself a win, but that's where you start him, which is why you started Nick Diaz with somebody like a Matt Brown as well.
Yeah, you put him in a fun fight with a name. Yeah,
and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm the biggest Diaz homer there is, right? But Nick, especially, he hasn't fought in 5+ years. He's 38 years old now. I don't see Nick Diaz winning a UFC title, and that doesn't need to be the aspiration. Put him in fun fights. Matt Brown is a great start, and you see what you got from there.
Yeah, I agree. And on the other end, you have Diego Lima, who's only 32. 32 seems to be like a new 25. Honestly, I feel like every fighter that's now like a stud is in their low 30s. They're no longer thinking that, oh, I'm in my 30s, I'm getting old. You have a lot of these fighters that are entering their 30s and they're just peaking in their prime.
Yeah, your prime starts later nowadays.
Yeah, it happens. I guess the biggest thing is back in the day, a lot of these fighters fought on pride. They fought multiple times a night. I mean, if you think about it, I believe on this card too, Alexei Oleinik, this man's fought 75 pro fights. That is an absurd amount of pro fights. And I guess back then that was the style. But nowadays you have fighters coming in, a little bit older, a lot more practice before they start their careers.
Well, Alexei Oleinik is also 43 years old, about to be 44 on June 25th, 10 days from now. So, he debuted in November 10th, 1996. This guy
that's crazy, older than I am. It's
amazing. Crazy. I love Alexei Oleinik, man. He's on a 2-fight skid, but he's always good for something crazy, win or loss. He's got 46 wins by submission in his career. He's got more submission wins than a lot of guys have, double fights, right? Alexei Oleinik is a monster. He's been doing it for a long time. And, his career is probably coming to an end, right? He's 44 years old. He's what would you say, 70 something fights? Like
75 pro fights. I mean,
yeah, appreciate it while it's here. And I think he's got a decent matchup this weekend. Sergey Spivak is pretty good. Who did he beat in his last fight? He beat Carlos Felipe and then Jared Vanderaa, who actually just came off a win. So I don't know. I think this is a good fight for Alexei Oleinik. You could see something crazy like an Ezekiel choke, or he could get finished in the first, but it's going to be exciting either way.
I think that's the only concern I have. I think that if he loses, it's going to happen in about 44 seconds by right hand.
I'm thinking of the Tai Tuivasa fight that Sergey Spivak won.
He submitted Tai Tuivasa,
which was a big win at the time, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, but even from then, he's named 2 more people that he's beaten. So he's not just taking long breaks. He's fighting. He's a fighter. That's what I like to see. I'm going to backtrack really quickly though, because I do want your take. Who do you have winning the Matt Brown fight? Matt Brown and Diego Lima.
I have Matt Brown.
I'm going to go Diego Lima. So we'll see. And then I'm going to be right. It's just how it is. But listen, like you said, if Matt Brown does win, though, I think there's a lot more opportunities. And you're right about that. Just purely out of the fact that it makes sense to have like a Nick Diaz fight somebody like him.
I mean, Matt Brown's 40 years old on a 2-fight losing streak. It's not.
He has to win. No, he has to.
I mean,
win.
I'm sure he's the underdog as well. Diego Lima probably wins, but
yeah, Matt Brown's a plus 145 and Lima's at a minus 170, which aren't bad odds. I mean, that's pretty fair. I would say that's a pretty good thing. So once again, to get Matt Brown at plus odds against somebody he's already beaten, people should consider.
Yeah.
Next up on that card that I'm excited for, it's not the next fight on the card, but Marlon Chito Vera is fighting Davey Grant. Those guys have also fought in the past. Last time, Grant coming off of a unanimous decision victory. This time, you now have a Marlon Vera who is coming off of a loss to Jose Aldo, but it just goes to show you where he is at his career now.
Yeah, I think, he's coming off the loss to Jose Aldo. He also has a loss to Song Yadong a couple fights ago. I thought he beat Song Yadong, and then he knocks out Sean O'Malley in the first round, parlays him into a Jose Aldo fight. Marlon Vera, he's on a roll right now. Even though he lost his last fight, he's on a roll. I think he's on the cusp of the upper echelon of 135. But he has to get past Davey Grant, who's on a 3-fight win streak, coming off a really, really nice knockout over Jonathan Martinez in his last fight, who is a really solid fighter. I think this is a pretty big fight, and especially with Davey Grant already taking the first fight. I like Marlon Vera here, though. I really like his skill set. He's good on the ground. He's good on the feet. He's got a little bit of an edge to him, which I like. He's beaten Sean O'Malley, right? I think, again, there's just a lot of things you can do with Marlon Vera when he wins this fight. And I guess you could say the same for Davey Grant, but I just favor Vera here.
I agree. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think Marlon Vera, that win against Sean O'Malley changed his entire mentality as
Absolutely.
A fighter, as a human being.
That was a huge win.
That was a huge win, and it changed, like you said, the trajectory of his career went in a complete different direction. His next fight, he got to fight Jose Aldo.
Yeah,
I mean, that's not,
and that was a competitive fight too.
He outstruck Jose Aldo too. I'm almost positive he landed more punches than Jose Aldo did.
Jose Aldo controlled him on the ground, though.
Yeah, I think
a little bit surprising, but again, Jose Aldo, who is not known for his ground, is a very good grappler. Absolutely. And it just, that's props to Jose Aldo for his versatility throughout a long career. But I thought Marlon Vera was in that fight. It was a close fight. This is a big opportunity for Davey Grant, though, man.
Yeah, I think either one of these guys winning this fight sets them up to be in a phenomenal spot. Not obviously a title contention shot, but you're now going to give them an opportunity to fight somebody for the title.
Absolutely.
So I'm excited for that. I'm going to take Chito Vera. He's coming in as the favorite this time. Once again, you have both of these times, both of the losers from the last fights are the favorites. Marlon Vera is a minus 240 and Davey Grant's a plus 200.
I mean, honestly, plus 200 on Davey Grant is not bad odds if you want to take a dog, because he is
on
a very game dog in this fight.
I agree. He's beaten him before. He's got a 3-fight winning streak. He's got a lot to look forward to. And it's just funny that both of the rematches on this card so far, the person who lost the first time is not the favorite.
Yeah.
And then that brings us right into the co-main event. Like we were already talking about, it's Alexei Oleinik versus what's his name? Sergey Spivak.
Yep.
I believe that's what it is. Oleinik is a plus 190. Spivak is a minus 230. We kind of touched up on it a little bit. You have Alexei Oleinik, a clear veteran. He's had 75 pro fights. He has been fighting longer than I've been alive. Versus, an up-and-comer. You have Sergey Spivak, who's 26 years old. I think a win over Oleinik puts him in not obviously a title shot, but it gets his name out there. Alexei Oleinik is a known person, the boa constrictor. This is a guy that's been fighting forever.
Yeah, it would be a big win for Spivak, but I got to go Oleinik. I got to go Oleinik by some sort of crazy submission, maybe like a scarf hold choke or not a scarf hold choke, but like a chest compressor or something.
Yeah,
I'm going Oleinik.
fucking suffocate him on mount. Who knows, dude? It's going to
Yeah.
be something weird. I could see it happening. Look, once again, you give these guys like these 26-year-olds and these like, these younger fighters, you give them these big names, and I don't think they understand how nervous they're going to be when the pressure's on them like that. Like, it's not just the UFC fight. A win for some guy like Spivak will catapult his name up, his recognition. It'll put him in a position to fight for maybe more money or give him a chance to get a little ranking next to that name.
I might put a number next to his name.
Yeah, and that's
or at least get him into the spot to do that.
And then on the Linux side, it's like he has to look at like, man, they're trying to use me. The UFC wants to use me as his gatekeeper to the ranking. So he wants to prove that that's not the case. He wants to show that at 43, almost 44, he still has what it takes to fight out
there. Yeah. I think it's good matchmaking. It should be a fun fight.
Yeah, that fight's not going to distance. I promise. If anybody that bets is listening to this, that fight will not go the distance.
Yeah, it definitely not going the distance for sure.
Yeah, then the next fight, on the other hand, the main event on this card, Jung versus Dan Ige, that is going to be insane. That's going to be fireworks, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's going to be a really good fight. I think Dan Ige looked extremely good in his last fight. Just dismantling Gavin Tucker, knocking him out in 22 seconds, coming off the loss to Calvin Kattar. He called for Korean Zombie. He got Korean Zombie. Korean Zombie coming off just a fight where he got dominated by Brian Ortega. I mean, Ortega really, and again, Ortega looked great. I don't know if it's just Ortega was on that night or there's a little bit of decline in the Zombie. He's had a lot of stretches of inactivity in his career. This is a big fight. This is I don't want to say do or die for Korean Zombie, but his window on challenging for another belt is probably closing. And for Dan Ige, I mean, a win over Korean Zombie, it just catapults you right into maybe not a title eliminator, but a fight that's very close to that. So there is a lot of high stakes in this fight this weekend.
I agree. Like you said, maybe somewhere around a number one contender opportunity. I'll be honest with you. Right now, it's a pick 'em. They're both minus 110s.
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dan Ige because personally, might not be sure. I think, like you said, the Korean Zombie is on the decline. He doesn't have an insane amount of fights. I think he's fought 22 times pro, but like you said, there's a lot of areas of inactivity, and I've heard that name has been around for years, much longer than you think for the amount of fights that he has.
Yeah, I mean, dude, the Zombie is well, you know what it is? It's like, and I believe a stat came out today. He's main evented like his last 8 fights or something like that.
That's actually crazy.
But it's like, it's the Zombie, man. When can you name a fight, a Korean Zombie fight that wasn't all action, all entertainment, just an awesome fight? They're few and far between. You can't say that for a lot of fighters. Korean Zombie just, he deserves a spot. He deserves these 5-round fights. He deserves these showcases. And it was just such a smart call out for Dan Ige. The fight made so much sense. I am so excited for it. I think it's going to be an excellent fight this weekend. I can't see any way that it is a snooze fest. Even if it ends quick some way, somebody's getting finished. It is great matchmaking. I
agree. And to be honest with you, Dan Ige is a wrestler, but I think this is going to be more of a striking fight. I think
it's going to be contended on the feet.
Oh yeah. Dan Ige is going to bite down on his mouthpiece, and Chan Sung Jung is going to step in the center of the octagon and they're going to throw. And once again, talking about a fighter that's a little bit unlucky, if Chan Sung Jung would have beaten Yair Rodriguez before that crazy elbow knocked him out, you're looking at a title contender right there. That would have been his title contender shot probably.
Yep.
Because it's like you said, you have somebody who's main eventing all these fights in a row. The UFC looks at that, sees he just beats a top 3 contender at the time. Bam, that's a great fight to make after the Max Holloway loss.
It's the beauty of the sport, though, man.
I know.
Shit can change in a heartbeat. We almost saw it this weekend with Nate. Yeah. That was one of the craziest moments, in UFC history. You talk about moments where Nate, if Nate pulled that comeback off, that would have been up there with, Anderson Silva, Chael Sonnen is the greatest upsets, it would have been the biggest in MMA history, right? Biggest comeback. Yair did that to Korean Zombie. So Korean Zombie has always been there. He faltered in this last fight, but I'm taking Korean Zombie this weekend. I still think he has a juice. I still think he has a lot left in the tank. This is going to be a war, but I think he grits out a tough, close decision I'm taking Zombie.
I'm just hoping for fireworks. Listen, Dan Ige calls himself Dan 50K Ige. I would love to see a performance of the night from these guys. It would make me so happy.
I mean, I think if you're putting betting odds on these guys winning fight of the night, I feel like it'd be like a -500. This fight's gonna be awesome.
There's a reason why it's a pick 'em. Nobody has a winner right now. They're both the same odds for a reason. They're going to go in there and it could go any way possible. I think there is no outcome that it's a snooze fest. I think it's going to be a slugfest the entire time.
Absolutely.
But I think that covers everything, man. I appreciate you for coming on against my crew.
Of course. Of course.
Well, thank you.
Always a fun time, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely get to after this fight. We'll have to do it again.
Yeah.
Take care.